Hi! It's been a while since I've posted a video. I just got back from Christmas vacation, which was long but good. And I start radiation therapy in a couple weeks, but I'll talk about that maybe in another video. Right now, I am going to talk about the GRE. For those of you who don't know what it is, it's a standardized test that's offered internationally. In Canada, if you want to get into grad school, um, unless it's like a specialized thing like law, you usually do the GRE. So the GRE is administered through ETS, which is a private American corporation that's based out of, I think, New Jersey. And I had some issues when applying to do the GRE. There is an option for disability accommodations, which I figured would be beneficial, especially since it's a computerized, it's offered on computer, which I need since I can't write because of the neuralgia in my hands. But an issue with that is I usually have to wear these gloves when I type, especially for long periods of time. Otherwise, the neuralgia gets really bad. They're kind of a compression glove. They actually work really well. I can usually go a couple hours typing without it hurting significantly or enough to impact what I'm doing. If I don't wear them, I can usually last about 20 minutes before I'm in excruciating pain. So, the GRE, an issue that I came across when I was applying for it is that in order to get accommodations, you have to provide complete educational and medical information. There's something else. I thought I had highlighted it, but I can't find it now. So you have to provide them with complete medical history relating to your disability or disabilities, which in my case would be extremely extensive. Most of my doctors are on to like folder 2 or folder 3 of medical updates. I also have some issues with sending this type of information to a private corporation in another country, especially since they ask things that my university can't actually legally ask anymore, thanks to the recent court case in Toronto, or I think it was York, in Ontario. They require information that the provincial government, so I'm an Ontario resident, so through OSAP, I don't have to provide them with this extensive thing. I just need to provide a letter from a doctor that says, well, the one that got sent to them is that I have multiple sclerosis and there's no cure. And I could do follow-up ones with everything else I've been diagnosed with since, but the MS kind of covers the umbrella of everything. The other issue is that when you, and it asks information that the federal government in Canada doesn't ask too. So when I was reading over they call it the Bulletin Supplement Test Takers with Disability Health Needs, many pages. They have a lot of things to read. I came across something in it's called the verification statement, to be signed by applicant. And there's a lot of like gibberish, like things you would expect, like this information is true, and I will provide additional information if ETS doesn't deem me disabled enough based on this information. But something that it said, I think it's first, second, third, fourth, it's the 5th paragraph down. It says, I acknowledge that any submitted information may also be used for research purposes, and that in no case will any individual be identified by name in research studies, and that the information will be protected in the terms of ETS's confidentiality of data policy. First issue, I tried to look up that policy. I couldn't find it anywhere on their site. Google couldn't find it. So I have some issues with that. I did find something that was the confidentiality of information policy through a Texas educator website. It seems to be a division of ETS, so I assume it's theirs. It's the it's Texas. So texes.ets.org. So it seems to be an ETS website. So in there, under I was like, maybe you can just opt out of this. I found it very weird that you have to automatically authorize them to use your personal information for whatever research they deem appropriate. And even with the issues of there'll be no, like, your name's not associated with it, it's still your information, it's still your medical history. So I have issues with a private corporation demanding access to it and demanding that they be allowed to use it for research if you want to get accommodations for this test that you have to take if you want to go to grad school. I find that very problematic. So under individual rights in this confidentiality of information policy, it says that you can at any time request access to and correction of your personal information, make inquiries, requests, or complaints in relation to the use of your personal information, and withdraw your consent to the processing of your personal information. So I'm not quite sure if that is the same as the medical information that you've given them. There is a subclause of that says, however, if you exercise this right, you may not be allowed to take further tests and your scores may be canceled. So if that is relating to it, the idea that if you opt out of them using your personal information for their research, you no longer have access to your scores that you've paid hundreds of dollars for, I find a very huge issue. So needless to say, I decided not to apply for the accommodations, which really was shitty. It sucked. So I wrote my test on December 30th. During the 10-minute break, it was good because I went and took my blood sugar, took medication, so at least I didn't have to get special permission in order to do those things. There was an issue with my blood sugar, which I probably would have realized earlier on. And the lighting, I had issues with the lighting. Fluorescent lights sometimes make me pass out. Schools are usually pretty good at, at my university, there's only 2 or 3 buildings that I have issues with. I haven't really been in them more than once because I usually tell the professor or the accessibility services if I get put in one of those rooms that I can't do that and class gets moved. It's not a huge issue. We're a pretty small university, so sometimes trying to find classrooms that fit the size is an issue if we're larger classes, but I don't really take larger classes, especially since I'm in upper level courses now. So yeah, almost passed out a couple times while writing my test, which was a bit of an issue for focus. Hands started being in excruciating pain. When I was on my break, I ran them under cold water and then hot water. Sometimes the circulation, the difference in temperature helps. It helped a little bit. Basically by hour 2, I just wanted to be finished it. Another issue, because of a brain lesion, I have dyscalculia. So for those of you who don't know, it's like dyslexia. I think most people are familiar to some degree with dyslexia. But instead of words and letters, it's with numbers. And I especially have a hard time when the numbers are mixed in with letters. So math problems that have letters thrown in with the numbers cause me more of an issue. Fun fact, that's a lot of what's on the GRE test. So I saw that once I was going through Kaplan and Princeton Review books and notes. I knew it was going to be difficult, and it was. I think I did okay. I'm still waiting for the results back. But I know I didn't do as well as I could have if I wasn't in pain, wasn't in a room that made me want to pass out or feel like I was going to pass out, and just a whole bunch of other things. I don't tend to need the time and a half. Sometimes I use it with math things. So when I was in chemistry, I definitely used the full time. Statistics, sometimes I used the full time. But yeah, so I was okay. I'm sure my scores aren't wonderful, but I did what I could. But the issue that I have is that people either have to divulge all of this personal information to a company, a private corporation, it's not an organization, it's a private company, despite their .org, that exists in another country that has different rules and different privacy laws than my country or than people who are in Europe. You have to give all of this information to them if you want accommodations, or you have to possibly fail, or do poorly. I guess you can't technically fail the GRE, but they administer all of these tests, and I don't understand how people don't see this as an issue. I don't know when we became so lax about people having access to other people's personal information. Like, it's their medical history. And there's no real, the policy that they quote, I can't find on their website. Maybe somebody else will have better luck. So you can't even really see what they're using your information for. And what's to say, there's nothing saying that they can't sell that information to other people. It just says that your name won't be associated with it. So, a lot of huge issues. Something I find maybe ironic is that one of the things that I'm really interested in doing in graduate school is looking at barriers to education for people with chronic illnesses or chronic pain. So it's ridiculous but interesting that in order to get into grad school to do this, there's this huge barrier that you have to face, and either decide, I made the decision if I wanted like my privacy potentially violated, and my personal information violated. I have things in my medical history that are extremely rare, so even saying my name won't be associated with it, I think some of the things wouldn't be too difficult to trace back, and trace it back to me, because I'm verbal about it, especially online. But that's my choice. And there's things that I don't include because I don't want it to be public information that they would have access to in my medical history and would be able to potentially make connections. And I know that might sound conspiracy or potentially paranoia, but I don't think people should have to choose between being in severe amount of pain for days. My hands are still in excruciating pain, or divulging personal information that the federal government doesn't even require. The government of Canada would never ask me for the information. If I was doing a census, they wouldn't ask me for that extensive information. And I would also have the option of opting out of my information being used. Yeah. So, barrier to education, the GRE, and I don't really understand why universities, especially with us attempting maybe to be progressive, and more inclusive of people with disabilities, are letting this private corporation manipulate people out of their personal information.